Hi friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolfpack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals. No one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences, our opinions, and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. We hope that you have a good time. And if you're returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for always showing up and just supporting the shit out of us. We love you. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of this show, and today we're on episode 85, and I have a very special guest with me, and her name is Mia. Hey babe, how's it going?
Hi, Brandy. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited and nervous to be here.
Yes, welcome. I mean, if it makes you feel better, everyone's first time they're nervous, and don't worry, I got you. I've done this a lot of times with new ones. I feel like I'm still new after 85, if that makes it feel better. No stress, but I just want to thank you first and foremost. I think our favorite thing about the show is when people reach out and say, hey, I have a story. Can I come on your show? It actually blows me away, and I actually got goosebumps right now because what that means to me is that you have a story to tell, and you're in a place where you want to empower others, and that's where me and Kayla were when we started the show. So thank you for reaching out and being like, hey, have me on. So before we get started, can you let our community know just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am 35 years old. I am a mom and a wife. My husband and I have been married for almost 12 years, and we have 3 wonderful boys who are 10, 8, and 5. They keep me very busy.
It's a lot of
My husband actually works away. He's usually 90% of the year is not home. So I call them my crew as they tag along with me everywhere. I love to be outside. We love soaking up as much sun as we can. We love the mountains and camping. And I'm a huge fitness freak. It keeps me sane, and I've recently fell in love with F45. So that's also a huge part of my life. And
that's so good.
Yeah,
I love that. I love it when people have that moment where they find. I know for everyone, fitness is such a different journey. Some have positives, some have negatives, but I love it when someone finds something that just works for them. It motivates them. It feels right. And the feeling after a workout, whether that's, going for a walk or lifting weights or even doing a really heavy, house deep clean, I think I get the worst sweats when I go for a deep clean in the house. We're like, oh, I'm going to organize. And all of a sudden it's a bigger mess than you anticipated.
Yeah.
I swear those are yeah, and I imagine with kids, it's probably even more so because you probably clean something and they decide that, no, this is how the room's going to be. I think those are hands down real workouts. And I don't think they get credited for enough.
No, 100%. I agree.
Oh, that's awesome. And one thing I do love too is when parents, they care about their fitness too, because then you're showing your kids, how important physical activity is and all that. And I think that's something that maybe our generation missed a little bit because I'm 35 as well. And I don't know, and some people I know my age are like, oh yeah, my parents were super fit. I didn't know very many people whose parents were active. It was very uncommon. So I had to kind of teach myself fitness. And so it's amazing to see all these moms around me that are, just so into it and teaching their kids how to be, active and not to give up on that. Not give up, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
how important.
I agree with you 100%. Just setting that example. And my boys are very active, and I don't know if it's from me, but
I'm sure you're a healthy influence for sure. If my parents, I was active because I was hyper,
But if, if like my parents just let me sit down and I had that, I probably would have, to be honest, right? So I definitely think they mimic that, and I think that's great. So yeah, keep it up. I remember I used to teach fitness classes, and I did some with the kids because they seen their parents do it, and they'd want to come to the classes too. So we'd always have like little kids classes so that they could join too, and it was just so cute. They just wanted to do the same as mom, and I freaking love it. Anyways, off topic. See, this is why I told you we have questions, my dear, because
love it.
Your girl just squirrel everywhere, but love it. Thank you so much for that. So, Mia, this episode, we decided to call it Mia's Story. So to get into it, let's talk about your story a little bit and what drove you to reach out to our show.
Yeah, so I am here to talk about my binge eating. I am 18 months into my recovery, and actually a little important tidbit is like, I wasn't sure if I was going to say I'm recovered or if I'm still in recovery, because it's like a hard line to follow, and I've kind of gone back and forth with myself about that. But for now, I'm still in recovery.
That's fair. That's a totally, sorry, not to break off there, but that's a totally fair thing. And I think, is it fair to say that you could be both at the same time? You have some days where you feel completely recovered, and some days, maybe it's a harder day or the weather's shit or whatever triggers, pile up. And you have to remind yourself like, okay, yeah, no, I still have some work to do, just, but still I never thought about that.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah. And I mean, for me, reaching out, I've actually just felt really called to do so I think it's the last couple of months. Like when I reached out to you, you were just ending your season. And so I'm thinking it was like end of June, beginning of July. And I went back and forth. Like when you said, okay, I'll get back to you in September. And I was like, am I really going to do this? Like a lot of people don't even know. Like they're going to hear my story and think, oh my gosh, they probably had no idea, but I struggled for a lot of years. So I felt really called to just go ahead and do it. And here I am, and I'm going to do it. So
I'm so proud. I know that like for whatever it's worth for our internet friendship over the last little bit, it's one of those things where I think, and then, maybe that little bit of space, that little break was something that you needed to have that affirmation, like, yeah, no. And then when I messaged you, because maybe you're like slow keeping like, oh, maybe she won't message me back, and then totally. The universe is like, oh no, she's messaging, like, oh no, you want to be on the show. And that's to anyone. You have a story, you want to share it, it's yours. We will make a special episode just for you because it's so important, because you don't know who is going to ripple effect. And most of the girls that have been on this show that share their experiences have said, oh my gosh, so many people reached out to me and said, I had no idea, and are now inspired or know somebody, or, that ripple effect. And then you now have that connection with that person, and you can build this little community of, support on the days that you don't feel fully recovered. You lean on them and they help you through. And that's what we were hoping this community would do for each other. So
yeah, 100%.
Yay. So proud you pushed through. And I hope you'll have that euphoric feeling after, like most of the guests do, being like, yep, that was the right move.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Good. And that's like when I used to be a photographer, and same thing with boudoir, you get the girls are always nervous. I still am to this day to go in front of a camera. And it's always so gratifying after you give them the picture, like, oh my God, this was so amazing and so empowering. And it's the same thing with the show now too, except for it's people's voice and their story, and that's helping other people. So I think that's extra cool.
Yeah, totally.
So yes, totally. Please keep going. Your story and your call too. So you came up, we're September now, and you're here.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it stems back from a long time for me. 2007, my now boyfriend at the time, we relocated to Saskatchewan, the two of us, and it was just us. Like, that's it. We had no friends, no family, family close by, but nobody right in the same town as us. And he had a job and I was a hairstylist. So I had applied at a few different salons. And I started working, and I actually got introduced to the gym like immediately. I had never worked out before, but I was just athletic through high school and stuff. And I was hooked. Like the gym, I was addicted to it. But with the gym came diets, like everybody talking about restrictive diets and pills. Like that was a big time for like diet pills and different
ways. You get at Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. Like lose weight really, really fast. Like here's some Hydroxycut.
And I don't think we understood like the scheming of that type of advertising then like we do now. You know, like you see the skinny teas and the lollipops, and you kind of like, you know, our generation can call that out because we've seen it. But when it first came around, like I believed everything that those things said. I was like, oh, yeah, it's on TV.
Yeah, like 100%. And it was like, oh, like this is like these quick fixes, right?
Finally.
So, yeah, like it wasn't long into my journey. And again, the gym was huge. Like mentally, it just gave me, I missed my family, I missed my friends. And mentally, the gym gave me something else to focus on. But then, of course, was this whole diet culture. In 2011, so fast forward a little bit, I was now married and everything. No kids yet. A lady at the gym approached me and she's like, you know, you work out really, really hard. Like you're always in here and I see you working out hard. You do really well. Like, did you see that they're having this big fitness competition in Saskatoon? And I was like, oh, I never really thought about something like that. She's like, yeah, they're making a new bikini category or whatever. And I was like, okay, like I jumped right in. I was like, I love working towards something. Like I'm all in. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And that's when it all started for me. So I hired a trainer. I was only 3 months out and she's like, I see potential in you, but you have a lot of work to do. So I was like, okay, send her my meal plan or send her what I've been eating. And she's like, oh, you need to take out the almond milk. You need to take out the fruit. Suddenly I'm like left looking like I get to eat oatmeal with nothing. I get to have some chicken and vegetables. And it was she cut me right down because I had so much work to do to be stage ready. Yeah.
Like I've never competed for my body dysmorphia. It just would never, you know, for me personally, it was in a place, so I'm just like, I could never do that for like little me. But that's one thing I just really worries me is like, wouldn't it just be better to been like, hey, you know what? I think you have good potential. Let's try show in like 6 months to 9 months and do this like in a proper, I'm not whatever, everyone does their own thing, but I just wish there was more of like that informed consent being like, hey, if you want to be there, we're going to have to be real fucking drastic for the next 3 months. Like I'm talking like crazy drastic and, you know, like you're putting yourself at risk, I'm not sure maybe that was said, but more often than not, I find that people aren't really advised that or told to like wait. It's like, oh, well, you can make the money now though, right? So not saying that that's 100%. What that coach did. But.
No, but 100%. Like in hindsight, and of course I didn't know now, I didn't know back then. Like I was just willing to put in all the work and do whatever it took, not knowing.
Because you told it could happen, right?
Yeah.
If you worked hard enough.
Yeah, for sure. And so I'm like, it's during prep and I'm making my husband cookies to take out to work. And I eat so much of the batter and so much of the cookies that I'm sick. And again, would I have called that a binge like back then? No. But I knew that I was not supposed to be eating the cookies or the dough. I probably shouldn't even have been making the cookies.
But we've all been there and in there being like, is this me right now? Okay.
So it's like time to weigh in and send in my stuff to my coach. And she's like, okay, so this is interesting. Like your weight hasn't changed since last week and nothing's moving here. I'm doing 2 hours of cardio a day plus lifting for an hour and nothing has changed. Well, I'm so ashamed that I'm not going to tell her like I just ate a bucket of cookie dough. Yeah. So I don't say anything. I'm just like, I don't know why. And I just don't know what's going on. And so it's time for the show. And I'm just like, she tells me, you know, a week before the show, like, you're not stage ready. And I'm like, well, I've worked my butt off literally in the gym, sweat and tears, and I'm going to get on stage.
Yeah.
So I did not place at all. It's not like the highlight of my life. I don't want to say that I regret doing it. I just don't think that I knew what I was getting myself into.
That's fair. And I think that happens to a lot of us more than we want to admit, you know, like we think we want a goal and then like, we're like, okay, did I build that up bigger in my head? Like what was the disappointment there, right? Like, did I do that for external reason? Did I really want that? I always have to question that for myself. I'm like, do you want this?
I know. And like the state, like kudos to everybody who does it. But for me
Totally.
personally and my personality, the stage is not for me. Like, give me a
And that's where
Spartan
I'm at.
race. Like, I will run a Spartan race. I will do push-ups and pull-ups and everything else. But like the stage presence thing, it's kind of out of my character. I think I just jumped in it being like, hey, this is something to work towards. And
Totally, yes. And
yeah,
can I ask what did you go for? Like, was it figure, bikini,
it
wellness?
was the bikini one. Yeah.
Bikini,
So
yeah,
I look back at those pictures and I'm literally just like really skinny and like concaved because I think I just starved myself and did as
right.
much cardio as I could. It really, I had no muscle. Like, yeah. So it's just kind of like, and then the after show, like, no one told me about reverse dieting. I had no clue what that even was. So,
And
well, it,
that was
Easter,
2011.
that was 2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Easter had passed during my prep, and I'm like a mini egg fiend. So I had saved mini eggs.
This is when it wasn't around for those that are like new, young here. Back in the day, you only got mini eggs at fucking Easter. Now you can get
Exactly.
them all the time and in a fucking Cadbury bar, BT dubs. So that was a thing. So
Yeah,
I
so
feel
you didn't get them at Easter. You weren't getting them again till next Easter. So I literally like had hoarded like a bag, like so much. And yeah, made myself sick off of them and then just continued on a downward spiral. Now, what saved me was December 2011. I got pregnant. And I will count my blessings every single day for this. For whatever reason, my binge eating always went into remission during my pregnancies.
that's
It
amazing.
just, I think because
Just took over.
yeah, I was like, I'm not going to deprive myself. I'm pregnant. I'm just going to let it be what it is. And I mean, my first pregnancy was beautiful. I actually love myself the most then.
That's amazing though, because every woman has a different experience, but especially if someone that was having issues like with that and just going what you went through, to be able to come through with such a positive body experience, where sometimes a lot of women have a negative one with body dysmorphia. I don't know, but just what people have told
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That's a really big win, and that probably helped you every other pregnancy to have that as such a big win the next
For
time.
sure. Well, and just like consuming all those calories, and a lot of the calories were sugar. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, I mean, like the health risks that I not only could have put myself through, but put my babies through. So I
It's amazing
think
what we do for other people over ourselves too, right?
for sure, it's true. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I'm
like,
like,
oh,
why can't I
I'm doing
tell
this for the
myself?
baby. Fuck myself. Who cares about
Yeah,
me? But baby's gone, then it's like, oh, party. Like, who cares? But and that's beautiful though. Like that our minds can put those like behaviors aside, and put that forward, even though it's the same body, same person. You could do the same thing, but you're mentally like in that mother mode. It's just
yeah,
kicked in, and you're like, nope, I gotta do this for the baby.
yeah,
I don't need the nutrients. The baby does though.
yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Oh,
So, I mean, okay, so I get pregnant in December with 2011 with my first, and then we move back to Okotoks. Like that's where we're from, and our families are here and everything else. So we make our way back, but then I'm stuck in 9 years of either like, so being pregnant, okay, fine, but then having the babies and like, what is the quickest possible way that I can lose this baby weight? And I'm exhausted and everything else, but it doesn't even matter. Like I am going to, and it wasn't just like the gym. Again, my husband works away, so like the gym was always like a big mental side for me. So like he would go to work and I would be like, this is like our routine, bring the babies with me and everything else. But then also came like the emotions of every time that he left, guess what I'm going for? The food.
yeah, yeah.
So it
And that was your like
was,
emotional release, kind
yes,
of.
a
Yeah,
hundred percent. And of
yeah,
course, it didn't ever actually do anything, but I thought that it was going to help.
of course. Well, I think it temporarily does though, right? Because it releases this like, and I'm not sure if this is right, but I find with a lot of
100%.
that. So perhaps you
Yes.
can control that happiness that's going to bring. I don't have those extremes, but I definitely could, especially being a stoner. I'm like, would you stop? Like, this is not good for you. You're an adult, but like, there's just something where you just can't stop. Like, and I'm not to the level, of that, but I totally can relate to that, where your brain, and as an adult, you're like, I have no other adult stopping me here. And when your spouse is gone, and then they'll stop you from eating food in the bed because they eat food in the bed too.
Yeah, for sure. No, I know.
Danger.
Yeah, and that's just it. And like, I mean, I had joined a really great gym and I loved the gym and everything, but we would do like these 40 days of no sugar. And I'm like, I can do this. Like 40 days of no sugar, great. Yep, done. But then in a week, even maybe in 2 or 3 days after the competition or like the 40-day challenge, I'm consuming my 40 days worth of sugar in 2 or 3
In that
days.
time. Oh my goodness, yes, I feel that. And it's hard
So
too, because you're always like rewarding yourself,
yeah,
but then you're like, am I rewarding myself though? Or am I, setting myself up to be like, doing the habit again or more addicted or whatever the reason
yeah,
is,
for
right?
sure. It's
A
this
hard
vicious, it's a
cycle.
vicious cycle because
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I see it even now still, and it's just like there's so many diets, and I'm not saying that something maybe doesn't work for some people. Like you hear of a lot, like fasting and keto, and a lot of these different things that people do. And don't get me wrong, I know people who those have worked wonders for them, but it's not for everybody. And when you do have these underlying issues, and when you've been restricting and, making yourself work out, because I was never like I never, like there's people who will binge and like become bulimic and make themselves sick. I never did that. I just would make myself work out for 2 or 3, 4 hours the next day. That was
To
my
balance it
approach.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like punishment almost
Yeah, yeah. And
for
like you
doing
feel like
that. Yeah.
crap. Like after a night of binging, like you've eaten so much sugar and salt or whatever it is, like you actually feel so ill, but you
Like
get
this
up
guilt.
and sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just like this guilt. Like I would assume like parents always get that parent mom guilt, it's just kind of like
For sure.
that
Hmm.
for eating guilt. Absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And
the guilt and just like night sweats, like it would feel so like that night's sleep would be so awful and you wake up feeling awful, but then you're like, I'm going to drink some water and I'm going to get on the treadmill or I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do
balance
this.
out.
This. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
that's
it never
totally fair.
does. Like you
No.
can't, there's the saying, you can't work out a bad diet. Well, you literally can't, but
Yeah.
I was actually able to hide my binge eating so well because I never let myself, like in the years between my babies, I never let myself gain like more than 10 to 15 pounds. So people, when I actually like started coming out and telling these few select people, I felt like
Totally.
people would be like, you don't have a binge eating disorder. You're not 300 pounds. Like, but
Yeah.
it's like,
But it's
no,
true though.
like I actually do.
But people visualize that and you're like, but I've been hiding it so well,
Yeah.
because of that shame and guilt that you hold, and you don't want people to be upset or hold you, like for me it was like holding me responsible in a sense, right? And so you just balance it. Like I used to be like a prescription, sorry, my cat, I let him in here because he's being okay, but he's just being so freaking cute and just like sneezing. And anyways, I had a prescription pill addiction, and I was so good at taking it and being on it all the time that no one had an idea that I was on Tylenol 3 all the time, and like a decent amount of it, because I was just so good at balancing and not showing anybody that.
Yeah.
And like the shitty thing is when with food is like, depending on your body, you can really manipulate so that your body doesn't show.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. That's why it's when you look at someone and their size, you can't really say what's healthy, because people can mask a lot of things, right? Like you could think someone's like thin and they're healthy, but they're eating 500 calories a day, like that.
For sure.
That's not healthy. No human body can function off of that, right?
Yeah.
Or, and there is a lot of toxicity in the fitness industry, and I don't think it gets called out enough. I don't think it gets brought to the attention enough, because like you said, with you restrictive like that, so I think counting macros are great, and I had to wait till I had a really good relationship with food to be able to do that, because the minute I started doing that and I didn't hit my macros and my perfectionism kicked in on top of like my mild, it wasn't, I wouldn't say I have an eating disorder, but I just don't take care of myself. Like in that sense where it was like, I'm not anorexic, but I will work so hard that I could work like a 10-hour span and not be like, oh my God, I didn't eat food. Like I didn't realize that that's a problem too, right? Not setting yourself up. Not like that anymore. But, you know, like you said, you can hide it, and it's really scary because if you don't want people to know something about you, sometimes they don't know until it's like too late. And then you're like, oh shit, now I can't hide it.
Yeah. Well, or I always used to be like, Mia's always on a diet. Like everybody knew, like at family functions, oh, Mia's not going to have a piece of cake because she's on a diet. So then even if I was going to have the cake, because of those comments, I actually wouldn't have it. But then I go home that night and eat an entire cake. So it's just like, this makes no sense. Like,
no. And then and the comments too. Like, I don't think people understand how, and I'm not saying you need to walk on eggshells with people. I'm really trying to be like, we need to look at our own triggers. However, those comments are frustrating because in that moment when you're going to break out of your shit, you're like, well, now if I eat it, now they're going to comment even more. So I might as well just not do it so I can just live in the comfortable comments that I already know. But if I eat that cake, then they're going to be like, oh, Mia's eating the cake. Yes, she's busted out of her diet. Yeah. And then you feel even more like shit. So you'd rather just do that at home in the comfort of your own home. And I don't think people realize how frustrating that is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because if I did it at home at night when my kids were in bed, husband's gone, nobody knew that it was happening. There was no comments. I just had to hear the own ones in my head, but I could ignore those ones.
Yeah. And I just smoked them away.
Yeah.
She's like, you're not here. Shut up. But I can tune you out. I can tune a lot of things out. My own self, very good at. Red flags for myself. What? I hear nothing. I'm just going to go to sleep now and ignore this.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
And it's just, and people don't know. And I've had the opposite in the sense where it was like, because I wouldn't eat very much. And one girl one time said to me, well, if you're going to want to have a baby one day, which I was struggling with infertility, no one knew this, but you should probably eat, like, because I was like maybe like 15 pounds, maybe 20 less than I am now. Like not terrible, but not great. I was a cardio instructor. I taught cardio 6 days a week, like, and lifted. That was hard. And I had no relationship with food. And she'd be like, oh, you need to eat a cheeseburger. And I'm like, if I turned around and said the opposite to someone, like, if you want to have a baby, you should stop eating a cheeseburger, I get punched in the face. Yeah, not saying it's okay, but it's just like things like that. It's just like, what? You know, like, how is that okay? Because me and you were struggling with that, you know, where we're always trying to always eat healthy. Yeah. You eat bad, try and be that way, and then people comment, and you're like, okay, no matter what I do, someone's going to comment. So, like, what the fuck? What do I do? And it doesn't feel supportive. It feels restrictive again. You're just like, now I'm put in this box where, you know, I can only eat chicken, rice, and broccoli. If I want to try and get out of that, then there's even more comments. So
yeah, I agree. Totally.
I'm just going to eat at home. Yeah. Or not go. You know? And it sucks when you don't want to go places because someone's going to comment on your eating, or if you don't finish your complete meal or something for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And people have to comment. And you're like,
we live in that. We do live in a society just like that. Like, I feel like we're slowly starting to get out of it because, like, now with girls, it's not this, like, oh, you need to be skinny. Like, the new, like, skinny is being, like, built and having muscles, right? Like, girls with muscle and girls who lift. Yeah. And it's great. I love it. And it's like, no, don't eat 800 calories. Eat 2,500 calories. And I mean, it is taking a shift. And I hope that, like, we can get out of the whole diet culture thing and get away from the dieting and the food comments, like, even for our own kids, right? And
and be the focus, like, what we're eating. I'm not saying you comment on anybody's food, but I feel like the focus should be more like, okay, educating everyone on what good, healthy, saturated foods are that you need to, you know, so many people worry about those calories. And to be honest, like I said, with counting macros, I know that works for some people and they live off of that. And that's amazing. I did it for 6-7 months this year from about January to June because, like, fucking summer. Hello. And Kelowna, what? No, just kidding. I've never been that way because I already struggled to have the calories, but I was like, I want to build. And I know that I need to be accountable because I've been eating like 1,900 calories, which is better than the 1,000, 1,200 I used to eat. But I was like, I need to break that. So I actually did my Fitness Pal for 6 or 7 months, built the kind of meals and repeated them. So I kind of could gather what, like, 2,000 was a day. And then I realized 2,200 was just like a little bit too much for me for what I wanted for my body. And now I'm just kind of like intuitive eating again. But had I not tracked that for that little bit, I didn't realize I was under eating, 300 to 400 calories when I first started. I was like, oh, wow, this is why I'm so tired. This is why, and like by doing that, I was also like, okay, you have to track that. Are you gonna put that chocolate bar in there? Like,
Yeah.
you gonna do that? Like, so,
Yeah, exactly.
but
Someone's
you
gonna
have
see
to be in a good space. You have to be in a good
Yeah.
space with food
Yeah.
and yourself to
Yeah.
be able to do that. Because if not, it is so much more destructive, I found personally. Because then when, I was okay, but when I did this a couple years ago and I wouldn't hit anything, calories or any of the, macros, I was so hard on myself. I was like, oh, you're a failure. Of course you couldn't do this. Like, why would you think you could do this? Like, did it? And I was just like, this might not be a positive thing to do right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing, like from the fitness competition time, like weighing out everything. It was completely like weighing out my oats. I'm like, I couldn't just grab a scoop of oats. Like they had to be weighed and my chicken had to be weighed. I couldn't just have the whole breast. And I'm actually like, again, I'm in a good space now. But if you would have taken me back 2 years ago, and if somebody would have said, okay, I want you to write down everything that you're eating and I want you to count this and count that, like I would have been like, I can't do that because it will just lead to a binge. Whereas like now, like, yeah, I don't do any of that. I do not weigh my food.
No.
I won't go back to
But it wouldn't, if you had to, it wouldn't trigger you in this whole repeat cycle again.
Exactly. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's just working, and it's so hard because I wish that none of us had any struggles, but unfortunately everyone does in certain ways. And it's just, finding those, and it's those moments where you're like, hey, you know what? This sucks. I hate this, but I'm not going to be trapped by it anymore. And every time I find when you're able to like kind of think those patterns in those ways, it doesn't trap you as much. You don't get so turned up. Like I used to be so upset about the scale, and I was like, you know what? I'm done being upset about the scale. I'm just going to stand on it every fucking day. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Until it doesn't piss me off anymore. And now it does not affect me the slightest because I literally watch the scale go up and down depending on where I am in my cycle, what I've eaten for the day before, and like, have I slept, and I just come to realize like it didn't mean anything for me. I know that's different for everyone.
But that's
you
what we
have to
need
face
to be teaching. And that's what like the teenage girls need to know, and the girls in their young 20s, and me when I was in my early 20s. And, like that's the type of stuff that we need to be teaching because it's just not good for anybody.
No. And unfortunately, as much as it would be nice to run away from all the things that don't feel good, it never makes us feel better in the end, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And usually that fear or that issue festers for me. And it just, as I age, things kind of seem a little bit more scary. I'm not trying to be that way, but like when I was younger, I was more carefree because I didn't know things in the world. And now I'm like, before I didn't really think about the food that I was eating, not for any other reason than I just didn't think about it. And now I'm like, have a good relationship with food. And now I really care what I put. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I eat my bad shit too. I'm not saying that. But now I'm like, okay, are you getting protein in a day? Those are the things that I want to worry about now. Are you setting your body up to function successfully? Are you eating good things? Not just like you can't have cheat meals. Like, yeah, absolutely you can. But I know that I feel like shit when I eat like shit. That's not just like, so, focusing more on those things, not like, just eating salad and like you said, chicken, like you can eat good, you can eat clean, you can eat healthy and still enjoy your foods, but you get in this mentality that you can only have, and then if you have a coach or people around you that are like, you can only eat this, bodybuilders only eat this, then you're just like, that's not everyone can afford that either. Like
for sure.
Chicken breast is expensive up here, especially if you go to a butcher, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
$5 a chicken breast, like, I can't eat 3 of those a day, y'all. I don't know how you guys afford that, but with just inflation over here, I'm not really sure how anybody affords that. And like, yeah, so it's right. So it's good that you say like you know that those things are there, but it doesn't trap you anymore. And it's been, you said 18 months now since you started your recovery journey. What are some pieces of advice you have for those that maybe feel like they also have a binge eating disorder or some sort of eating issue?
I think I just would want to say, like, so I did reach out. That was my biggest thing. I don't think I could have done it well, no, I know that I couldn't have done it by myself because I hit rock bottom where I was like, I need help with this. So I think like for people who are struggling, like don't be afraid to reach out. My biggest thing, I mean, I know we all talk about COVID and it's like COVID was literally the worst thing that happened. I always see like just this slight other side to it because it is what brought me to my recovery.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, because like when the gyms shut down, that was when it was like, oh my gosh, okay, the gym is my mental savior, but it's also my like, if I binge, I'm going to go and work out for 3 hours. So now I don't have that. So it's like November 2020, because like I was able to keep my workouts at home going for about 5-6 months. And November 2020, I remember is the first time that I like broke down to a really good friend of mine and the first person that I ever really admitted anything to. And I was like, I can't like, I had told her in the past, you know, like, oh yeah, I just overate too much, or I had too much of this and it made me not feel well. But I never actually told her that it like had happened multiple times and that I actually had this disorder.
It was just like a once in a while, like, oh, I just ate too much today.
Yeah,
Had too
you
much,
know, you say that
you
as a
know.
friend, like, oh, I have a little food baby, like, you know,
Yeah.
anyways. So I had actually like broke down and ended up telling her. And then from November 2020, like into the new year 21, it was just spiraling out of control. And I reached out to another friend of mine who I had actually met like when we first moved back to Okotoks. And she's kind of like a holistic coach. She does a lot of food stuff, but kind of it actually turned into be like I hired her for 10 weeks and it was honestly like a therapy / like lifestyle coaching type thing. So it
Just
was
a nice
great.
cheerleader.
Yeah, just what I needed. And we did like a lot of food talk. But then in the meantime, actually, what I found that spring was, and I'm sure you've heard other people talk about this too, is the Brain Over Binge podcasts and book.
Oh, no. That's amazing.
Okay,
Well,
yeah. So she's
podcasts and books, yay.
I know, yeah. So I read her book, and then the podcast just like rang true to me. She talks a lot about. So what I had done, I'd actually been to like an actual therapist a couple times and done a few sessions and tried to dig deep into my binge eating, and I found out that it had nothing to do with my childhood. Like nothing came from childhood food issues, or there was nothing like deep down that stemmed from anything. It was literally this restrictive dieting cycle that I had been in for 10 years, well, 15 years.
Yeah.
And it turned into this, she talks about like your lower brain and how the urges come from the lower brain and just to not give them any attention. It took a long time for me to teach myself this.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I was able to do it. And that is actually a huge part of my recovery, along with this 10-week program that I had done with this lady. But yeah, I don't think that I could have done it by myself. So I think that would be like my biggest advice. Like if you're struggling and you feel like you can't do it, but also that you can do it, it's just sometimes you need that extra person to guide you along as well.
And I think everyone needs that too. So no matter in what area in life, I think someone always needs that cheerleader, that coach, that pet, whether that's a friend or your spouse or, a hired coach or, anybody, just someone to roll off. And I would say like, when you're driving and your windshield's all dirty and sometimes you just need wipers to clean it off, right? So most people know where they're going, they know what they're doing, they know the answer. They just need someone to clean off their windshield, help them see their path, right? Because you kind of get foggy with all these thoughts and these old patterns that you've developed, like you said, 15 years. How long have you told yourself the same stories for 15 years about food and your relationship to it? So it takes time to repattern that. And it's especially hard when your subconscious is consuming all this stuff on Instagram, social media. But in 2011, when you're competing, imagine competing now with where Instagram and all that stuff, like I would struggle so hard at the comparison game. It's unreal. Like I couldn't imagine what, like you said, that I could not do it kudos to them, because it would just bring up a lot of those old patterns that I have about judgment and comparing myself to others. And, you know, I'd be the same way. I would not be big enough for figure. So I would definitely have to do like, I don't think my butt would probably be big enough for wellness, but I don't think my legs. So I definitely have to do bikini too. And although a lot of people think, you know, I have the stage presence, I could do that, I'm actually a really ako taco person. And my nurse would just pick, like, you know, it's different when I was teaching dance classes and stuff like that. You know, you can be flaily. Like, that is not a place that you can be flaily and weird. So, like, I feel you there.
For sure.
But yeah, I agree, having that community and reaching out. And what's so cool about social media now, even though it's a bit harder, is that there are a lot of support groups out there now that you can be a part of that are private, that are just for whichever illness or disease or disorder that you're dealing with, to help give you resources. And I'll make sure, if you can remember, if you can send me her podcast so I can share it with the page as well. That would be awesome, because that nothing I love more, because any everyday people can have podcasts and just share their experience and stem something with somebody that starts their journey into healing. And hearing your story will make people think, oh my gosh, I don't have to stay in this restrictive. And you can still, I'm sure you still enjoy fitness. So the pandemic is, you know, not over, but, and what's one thing I want to say is amazing is congratulations for going through one of the hardest times. Because actually, before we jumped on today, the last couple of days, I've been listening to some videos in the background about binge eating disorder. And one of the things that they said that is a very big trigger for it is that most people have like some sort of depressive state. And when they go through something like a severe isolation, that increases it. And so the pandemic has increased, you know, binge eating disorders, like things like that. Because of, like, even not even just binge eating, like any disorder where that isolation like amplifies the depression, and you're alone, like you said, you know.
You're by yourself, or you're with your kids, whatever. And that was a time, I mean, that was the darkest time for me, and it was easy to just like rely on food. And, you know, that's kind of the other thing to say to somebody else too, is like when the food takes over, you know, that literally is all that's on your mind is food. And you think that if I didn't have this disorder, all my issues would be solved. And what I want to say is that my binge eating, yes, I'm doing well now, but I still have bad days. I still have hard days with my kids. Everything isn't just like happy and joyous just because I'm no longer binge eating. But I have the mental space in my head now for that stuff, because I no longer am filled with only thoughts of food. So I think it's just important to know that too, because I thought that I could eat away my problems, and obviously that did not help. The problems are still there, but I have space for them. And I think that, that's just important for people to know as well.
And having grace. And I think so many people, and that's a good thing, to not have that expectation that too, like, and like you said, it's 18 months, but you still have thoughts. And I think any form of addict can say this, like being a recovered prescription pill addict, there's so many days where I'll get a headache, or I'm just not feeling great. And old me would have convinced myself that something hurt to take that medication to just get away from it. Right. And it's so wild that it could be years down the road. I've pretty much have only had Advil for, I don't even know, like 7 years since I've taken any sort of like outside of Advil. And still to this day, there'll be times where I'm like, I'll just get like a really hard headache. You know, you work out extra hard and you don't stretch enough and drink enough water at the gym, and you get that like neck headache. And in the past, I would have been like, oh, just take like 2 Tylenol 3. And now it's just like, I still get that feeling. No matter how long it's been since I've had that medication, I still get that pattern in my brain. So it's like you have to have a lot of grace with yourself through recovery, that and that might never go away. And you just have to have grace with that and be okay with it, because you can't wish it away, unfortunately. But like you said, you could have the tools and the pattern, the mental capacity to be like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that is for you, right? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend and being like, hey, can we go somewhere? Because I'm about to, or can you just talk to me on the phone and distract me? You know, whatever it is. I think community and grace is a huge part of any sort of recovery, for sure. Because you can't do it on your own. And I think our egos always convince us that we can, and it gets in our way.
Yeah. And just knowing, I think too, that there's, like you said, there's going to be things that trigger. Like for me, a big thing is, so I started my recovery in March of 2021, and then the gyms opened back up, and I knew that like I wanted to jump back in, but I actually had to give myself some time. So I didn't join back to the gym till August 2021, which is when I fell in love with F45, because that's where I joined.
That's amazing.
But just knowing the triggers that I was walking into. So my girlfriend had actually, she knew my story, and she had convinced me to do this challenge that the gym was doing. But I knew that doing the challenge meant doing like a body scan. So like your fat, your weight, all your muscle, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I had said to her, like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Because what I had to do when I did this whole program with this lady, like I literally stopped restricting myself of anything. So for 5 months straight, I am eating stuff that I probably didn't touch for 10 years. Like I'm eating bread, I'm eating chicken fingers, French fries, like stuff that I would have been like forbidden, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That you had a negative connotation to.
Yeah. So I said to her, you know what? I'm going to do the challenge because the workouts are fantastic. I'm going to do it, but I'm not looking at my body scan. I'm closing my eyes. The paper will print out. The instructor will take it, and I'm not looking at it. And it took me, it was about 4 months into my new fitness journey that I did not look at any of those numbers. But what followed, and I say this with the gym, like I love the gym, I love my workouts, and it just naturally, everything flowed together. Like I want to feel good when I'm working out, but don't get me wrong, I love chocolate. I haven't gone a day without chocolate unless I've had the stomach flu. So
yeah. Even then it's like, well, if I'm going to be sick, I might as well.
I do not deprive myself at all. These 18 months have been amazing. My fitness journey has been great, but I literally have not taken anything away. I haven't deprived myself. I am listening to my body, and I'm just giving it what it needs. And I have way more muscle now than when I stepped on the stage in 2011 when I was just like this skinny rail. So
yeah. And isn't that crazy how you can look back, and don't you ever just like want to go back a little bit and just like hug that version of yourself?
Totally.
And just be like, I'm sorry that you felt like you had to be here, but then you like beam with pride of where you are now.
Yes.
Like, and that's why I urge people to take pictures. Like you don't even have to post them, just for yourself, because it doesn't even have to be fitness photos with like that comparison. I just mean your energy, your face, you can see the changes, right? And it's more than what people can see on the outside, because, you know, like you said, you were able to balance that where people had no idea that you were doing that. And I'll be the same way, like, you know, not because I didn't eat very much during the day, but people are like, oh, you don't eat so much, you're so skinny. And it's like, ask my boyfriend what I do at nighttime after I get stoned and I've had a mentally exhausting day, you know, just because my metabolism's wicked fast, and it always has been. And, you know, my body's just so used to doing like fasted cardio, and that's just what, like, you know, my body functions properly where, you know, like, and this might be an overshare in this situation, but like, or whatever, but, you know, like when some people tell me like, oh, I only go to the bathroom, like take shit like once or twice a week, I'm like, that's not good for you.
No,
you know, your body should be
that is not
settling
right.
it once or twice a day. Like those are things that, like, you know, your body's supposed to be naturally functioning, and it always goes back to the food that we're eating. And like for me, like my body is now better because I'm eating more food, but mentally it was like, well, the more food you eat, you know, like it wasn't always that way, but it was just like, I don't know. It's just like, no, but you eat the good foods, you can eat as much as you want, you know, and so it's just understanding about how your body works, and how food and nutrition is really like the fuel that's important, and it doesn't have to be restrictive. You can have all those snacks. Like this one girl that I follow, she's like, you want to have cookies? Why don't you put that in like protein yogurt with some fruit and throw a cookie in there and like crumble it up and put some protein in it? Like you don't need to restrict, but like add value to it, you know?
Yes. And that's
learning those lessons.
Yeah. And just listen to your body. Like 2 months ago, I went through this thing, and I said to my girlfriend, I'm like, oh my gosh, like my workouts, like I'm feeling depleted all day long. And you go back and you just kind of look at things, and it's like, oh, I need to add in some more protein. I need some more carbs. Like, and you do those things and you feel great. And I think that that's just what it's all about, is listening to our bodies and knowing that, okay, so for these 6 months, this worked great, but now I'm going to have to switch things up because my body's actually telling me I need more of this or I need less of that. So,
and your life changes. Like, think about cycles of seasons too, right?
yes.
Like, think about the next 3 months compared to the last 3 months. Well, it's going to get colder, especially up in Alberta. Y'all are going to get minus degrees, and it's, shit. So you're going to be inside. More activities are changing, but then you've got Halloween, Thanksgiving. You got Christmas coming up. You have New Year. So that is like a big, heavy holiday season where all those things are coming up too. You're not outside. So your diet and your exercise is probably going to have to shift a little bit because, you're not going outside running around at the beach or chasing the kids outside as much because, kids are resilient, but they still don't like minus 20 and 30, right?
No, exactly.
And so I think people too have to understand, like, you're going to change a little bit as your life changes, and then,
yes. And our food, sorry.
Yeah. And the food sources changes too,
changes.
Right?
Yeah, like with the seasons and stuff, like our food, like, we have great fruit right now, but in a month, our fruit will be terrible.
Yeah, what is it? Like, you just like, what is that brown thing? Is that a kiwi? Yeah. Oh, that's a mango.
Yeah.
Frozen fruit, y'all. That's the place to be. That's the place to go. But it changes, right? So then you got to kind of have to adapt. Like, maybe that's when you supplement a little bit more, but then it's listening to your body, if you're feeling like, I notice for myself, if my joints feel like really extra cracky and like not feeling good, I'm like, have I had any good fats lately? Have I had any omegas lately? Have I drank fucking water? Like,
for sure.
I don't think people take the basics, because really it's really basic. Right? Yeah. If you go down to it, like you said, it's just, you don't have to be restrictive, but you're, okay, well, my workout's upped and now I'm getting stronger. So I probably have to up my protein intake or my calorie intake because I'm burning more, or I decided, I'm going to take this kickboxing class a couple days a week. Well, now you're burning an extra 200 or 300 calories in that day that you weren't before, so you got to substitute and add a little bit to it. Right. And I think the biggest problem with the fitness industry, I find, is that there's just so much out there that people get so overwhelmed of, like, you have to do this, you do that, you don't do this, you do that. And there's so much advice that people are just like, they just shut down.
Yeah, it's too much. Like, if you walk into a gym, and I'm a firm believer of this, if you walk into a gym and you're just changing that about your lifestyle, like, the eating will follow. Like, you're not, okay, if you're eating McDonald's every single day and you say, I'm going to go start working out, you walk into that gym, I guarantee after 1 month, you're not still eating McDonald's every single day. They go together because the gym makes you feel good. You want to build off of those endorphins and you want it to continue. So you fuel your body properly. And I don't think that we need to just like completely like restrict, because it is okay. You are working out, you are going to the gym. Oh, you had a chocolate bar today. That's okay. But you're not just going to eat like a bunch of junky food all day long because you want to fuel those workouts. So
yes, and it is that balance too, because like, and as you say, like with binge eating too, if you have that little bit and you have that once in a while, you're not inclined to be so restrictive at when you get your hands on it and it's fucking Easter and mini eggs drop. It's like,
yes.
And then it's like, then you're guilty, and then you have, well, fuck it, this whole month, I ate a little bit bad, fuck it this whole month, and it's just like it's these repetitive cycles where, you learn, you're like, okay, that was kind of a shit move.
Yeah.
I don't love that, but you're not going to die, so maybe don't do that next time.
Like
maybe
it's the whole mentality. Like, I'm going to start my diet on Monday, and Sunday night, I'm going to eat every bad thing in the house. So there's
nothing left.
There's nothing left.
Forgetting that we're adults and we can drive to the fucking store, order skip the dish now, and get whatever we want like that. So you have to play those mental games with yourself, though, too, right? So what I try to do, like one big thing, because I am a huge stacker and a stoner, but I'm like, okay, I can do that. But again, I need to have a little bit more substance to it, like, so instead of like ordering ice cream now, I'll make like a yogurt, protein, like I kind of lactose, so I kind of get the lactose free. I love it. I get acne every time I have dairy. I'm like, god damn. But it's so much better than ice cream, so I get the lactose free, and then I put like like a couple like chocolate chips in our little marshmallows and strawberries. So I'm like, ooh, look at this. It's like an ice cream treat. You know, it's just like
Yeah, for
almost
sure.
tricking your brain
Yeah.
to thinking that
Yes.
those good
100.
things are treats, you know? And
Yeah.
you don't have to do it all overnight. Like when I started eating healthy, I did not grow up eating spinach and kale. That was something in the last like 5 years for me. But what I started doing is I would put just like 2 or 3 leaves in a shake, and then it got to a handful. And I was like, okay, I'll mix this with some lettuce. So I'm like, and then now it's like I could just eat spinach just in a salad, like it's not a big deal every day of the week.
Uh,
It's everyone thinks that you have to do everything right now and you have
all
to
at
be
once. And
at
that's what's
once.
so, yeah.
And that's a lie. That's a gimmick. That's a
Yeah.
sales pitch to make you think
Yes.
that you need to buy or have these things you don't. There's so many things. I'm sure you feel the same way. And there's supplements. I'm sure there's stuff that works out there. Don't get me wrong. But if finances are a thing or accessibility, like you don't need to have like the sweat trainer bands and the fat burners. You can literally put on a pair of sweatpants, a hat, and a sweater and go on the fucking Stairmaster for 15 minutes and come back and talk to me. And if you're not dripping with sweat, you might want to talk to your doctor about your sweat glands.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not shading on any of that stuff, but what the fitness industry makes you feel is that you need all of this stuff to be successful in your journey.
And it's detrimental to our health. It's actually doing the opposite. And, because I remember thinking, oh, if I start this new diet, I can lose 10 pounds. And I would literally lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I kid you not. But then I would gain 15 in the following week. So it was just this yo-yo effect for me of gaining and losing the same 10 to 15 pounds. It's like the faster that you lose it, the faster it's coming back.
So, and it's that long term, but no one wants that anymore, right? And we live in instant gratification of everything now.
Yeah, you don't want to put in the work for it.
But then how many years to develop that, And that's why I always have to tell myself, like, some people think about all the years it took you to put on that weight or deter yourself from putting on that muscle, right? It's going to take the same amount of years, if not more, to reverse that and get out of those patterns and let your body get back to that
100%.
homeostasis. And because most people, maybe they do or not know, but like everything roots in our gut. So if our diet's poor, everything else is going to be poor. Your skin, your hair, your bodies, your mental health, your sleep, but the shitty thing is that it's all over the place and it's so acceptable. And you hear, well, the FDA approves all this stuff or Health Canada approves it all. It's like, yeah, but look at us as a society. We're getting better, but are we really feeling better? When fast and easy, like McDonald's is cheaper than, let's say, even Subway, So in these days and age, when gas costs $2, people are going to go get the McDonald's. And, we have a friend. Look, Benji's making his appearance on the show. And it makes me really sad because people are wanting to do this, but they can't afford it. Like even strawberries today, $6.50 for the strawberries that'll last me Monday to Thursday, just one snack a day with 3 strawberries a day. It cost me $6.50 for my one person. If Grant was to eat that, that'd be like about $15 for one snack for the week for us for healthy food.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. I know. It's crazy. So it makes no sense.
People are not going to do that. And so like, I feel for those that have had to go through this isolation that already have all these things. Like, this is why I was so excited. Not excited. That's such a weird thing. I don't want to say I'm excited that you went through this.
No, that's okay. It's fine.
But like, I'm excited when people want to share because it means that you're, like I said, at a point where you're like, I'm good about this and this is what I did. And I just want people to find their strength because you get attacked from everywhere with this, in this industry, in this lifestyle, and food is a really hot topic for a lot of people and their relationship with it. So it's really important to bring out those success stories. I didn't even get to ask any questions because this has just been so great. So when you went through this, I do want to ask just a couple more. Did you have like support? Like I know you said you reached out to your friend, and the people that in your life were they supportive of you? Like when you're like, hey, I have a problem, I need help.
Yeah, everybody's been really great. So at first, like I said, I told that November 2021, I did tell my one girlfriend, or November 2020, I did tell her, and then I slowly started telling my little sister, and my little sister and I are super close. We tell each other everything. And although like she couldn't relate to me because she's never had this issue before, she has just always been there for me. And same with my girlfriend. Like she could not relate at all to this particular thing, but we always found a way to just to connect and for them to listen to me. And so I definitely appreciate that part. And my husband, like, I love him to pieces. He was definitely supportive, but like one of his things to me was just like, well, like, just don't eat it. Like, just have the willpower and don't eat it. But like, to a binge eater, that's exactly what you don't need to hear.
Yeah. You're like, but I would if I could, but I can't. There's just something, everyone's got that something that, whatever it is. Some people's drugs, some people's food, some people's video games, porn, like cigarettes, whatever it is. Everyone's got that, like, no, I need that, like hit me in the forehead, like stop me kind of thing. It's like, I could tell myself this, and then I'm sitting here eating it. And then I'm like, don't do this. Oh my God, stop doing it.
Exactly.
You're going to stop. And your body's just
like, there's no willpower. The willpower is not involved in this, but
your subconscious takes over.
Well, and he's great. He's like the one who really convinced me to, he's big into podcasts too. And he's like, no, like, this is your story and you need to tell it. And like,
he's gonna be so proud of you. Yes, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, once we can get over that shame, because there shouldn't be any, but we just tell ourselves there should be. Right. It's more empowering, and it feels like you can almost like not close the chapter, but just kind of be okay with it in a different way. Like,
it's true.
You get it out and you put it out there, and it's just like, I don't know, I don't have kids, but it's like your kid, and it's just, you let it fly out there, and it's kind of like, I hope it brings a little bit of peace and like strength at the same time, right? Well, it's like you went through that. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, you had said, like, and I know that might be one of the questions too, but just like, what would I say to my past self? And you said, like, don't you just like want to hug yourself? And, when I read that question, I was kind of like, okay, like, I really don't have anything to say to her necessarily. I want to hug her and I want to like be there for her and tell her it's amazing, like what she's been through. But at the end of the day, that she will get out onto the other side of this. But at the end of the day, it's this weird space to be in, because I'm almost thankful for going through what I went through, if that makes sense. Because I'm like, I wouldn't be here today without struggling the way that I did back then. Not that like makes me want to have been there, but I feel like I came out so much stronger and I have so much more knowledge. And like, even in my fitness journey, I'm way stronger than when I first started at the gym, or than when I did all these other things. And I'm just like, but I'm like fueling myself properly and I feel good and it all feels so great. So I don't know if I would have got to where I am right now if I wouldn't have come through all those obstacles, right? So
absolutely. And when you can be, I'm a firm believer, when you're happy at where you are in the moment, it's kind of hard to not be happy with what had happened, because if it went a different way, you wouldn't go through this. And if we think about life, and I mean, it really just all depends on what you like think back to, if spiritually or religiously. For me, I believe we all have various souls, right? We have soul contracts. We come to each lifetime, right? And so what are the lessons that we're learning? Because we're going to have to go through them. No matter what, every human being is going through their lessons, big, small, publicly, or, personally, whichever. And so we can't stop them, right? So it's like being able to learn the lessons and get through that. And when you come on the other side, you're like, well, like for example, like, I don't love that I got divorced. That sucks, but we're both so much happier. So, and we're in better places, right? And so like, how can I look back on that as a negative thing when everything's so happy right now and everyone's good, right? And so it's like, when you can take those lessons and be, okay, that was one of the lessons I came to earth, or this timeline, or however you want to see it, and I've learned that now I get to take that and I get to impart that on other people, and help them learn their lessons and like ascend and fulfill their soul contracts, or however you want to look at it, right? And I feel like it's so empowering when you can, if you can look at it that way, and in spiritual or religious reasons, and find strength and empower others to it. And that, again, that ripple effect, I love when people can get there. So I'm really excited for you that you're there. And look what you're teaching your kids too, right? Like we said before, like teaching them fitness and to care about nutrition because it's important, but not to be obsessive about it, and that it is your value.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I love that. And yeah, I always want to hug my little Brandy. That sounds weird when I say that out loud, but I'm always like, when you react a certain way, you're just like, oh, I remember when you were 5 and you developed that problem. So yeah, so reaching out to people, obviously is the most important, part, because like you said, you can't, I'm sure a lot of people can get through stuff alone, but I feel like it's just so much better when you don't. And obviously we're always here to talk to you guys. If you ever have anything to talk about, we're always here to talk to you guys, because you shouldn't ever go through things alone or feel like you're alone or your story doesn't matter, because it does. I'm just trying to think. I feel like we answered pretty much everything with this. So I guess my final question would be to you. How does it feel to have shared your story? Is there anything about your story that we haven't covered today that you would like to share with us? This has been so amazing, Mia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just feel, I'm really grateful and thankful for you. And I'm so happy that I reached out. I feel like I was so nervous and trying to talk myself out of this for the days leading up to it. I'm like thinking of all these excuses.
Of course.
But
I still do after episode 85. I'm like, oh, well, if she cancels, I'm just going to put my sweatpants back on and smoke a joint and, do something. But then I was like, no, and not to be that way, but I was like, no, it gets me more excited when guests like reach out, like I said. So
yeah, no, I'm really glad that I did. And no, I think we honestly covered everything. And yeah, this is great. Like, I was so emotional coming into this, and I just actually really feel great about it. And I'm glad that we did it.
Good. Thank you so much. It is. It's so wonderful. And what I'll say, though, is it won't be your last one. All of our guests, they come on one time and like, oh, shit, that was fun and easy. It's just like what we want it to be is like getting together with a girlfriend and just talking like you normally would on the phone, and hoping that the people that are listening take it away. Like, you don't have to have a binge eating disorder to take something away from today, because we all have the same kind of struggles. It just projects and looks differently, and one of the biggest things is I've been learning this last couple of years is that everything's a mirror. And we could look at the last little bit, COVID was shit. I totally agree. But the amount of success stories and positives that people are able to pull out of it is what's going to make us heal through all of that.
It's the silver lining. It's the silver lining for sure.
100%. For me, it was like, I started this podcast. I met all these cool people. I found my voice, it sucked, but we're through it. We still meet. We have episodes where we're going to talk about that. Like, we're not going to forget that just happened. But to look back at everything that we go through and pull the lessons, the positives, the happiness that can come from it, I just feel like that puts more into the world, and we can bring more of that in. So thank you for sharing your story. I know that it's going to help people for sure. It always does. I hope that, it helps you too. Like I said, I hope it brought you peace today, and some strength. It takes a lot to share your story, and I don't think people understand that until they go on a show. But I think they also don't realize is how strong you feel after it. So I'm really glad that you're feeling that already. Thank you for reaching out. Welcome to the world of podcasting.
Thank you.
It'll be an addiction. You'll be like, we'll post another and be like, oh, who wants to talk about this? Like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. Oh, have you guys thought about talking about this? It happens because we're like, could we do a podcast? And all of a sudden we listed like 70 topics. Like within the first couple weeks we started talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I think we could do that. There's a lot of shit that could be talked about. So thank you so much again, Mia, for coming on the show today. It was so great connecting with you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited to reconnect and watch you continue on your recovery journey. And make sure too, if you have any other resources or things you see relating to your episode, share it with us, and we'll share it with everyone. Just because this podcast will launch and carry on, we still want to bring awareness to this and people to never feel alone. And so make sure you share that with us. Let's just wrap up the show, guys. I am so excited that you guys have all come to season 4. I hope you're enjoying this video podcast. I drink a lot of water because I'm a stoner, I've realized. Watching back, I'm like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm not picking my nose. So thank you guys for showing up on season 4, watching our videos. Make sure you're following us on YouTube now. Yes, Apple, Spotify, all those good ones. If you want exclusive content or early episodes, follow me on Patreon. But until next time, guys, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for stopping by the show today. We appreciate you so much. If you like this episode and you want to see more, make sure to show us some love on our Instagram page, the Be Real Babe Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube. Make sure you're turning on those notifications for Apple and Spotify so you get notified as soon as an episode drops. Or you can become a member of our Patreon page with extra content and early access. But make sure to stay tuned for more realness coming to you next week, babes.